Hello and welcome to Rock Paper Shotgun. Now, if you're in the mood to watch a very angry man chop the limbs off other angry men, have I got a video for you. This is The Surge 2, the follow-up to 2017's The Surge, which was basically Dark Souls meets Elysium. Do you remember Elysium? It was that film where Matt Damon got a weird exosuit thing. The film where Matt Damon's face on the poster aptly captures the heightened state of emotion you'll feel watching Elysium. Anyway, this being a world of exo-suited heroes and villains, the Surge's big mechanical hook is the ability to target specific limbs and chop them off. Doing this increases the chance of getting a loot drop for that particular body part, which you could then craft for your very own exo rig. Well, that's the sensible description of it. We all know the real appeal is seeing those limb-chopping finishers. And on this front, The Surge 2 doesn't disappoint. Let's take a look at my top 5 so far. Cue game show music. At number 5, it's the 1 foot in the grave. Oh, and the foot isn't attached to a body. At number 4, it's my camera messed up, but the guy's head came off, so it was okay in the end. At number 3, it's the grass trimmer. It keeps your lawn neat and removes any pesky ankles. At number 2, it's the answer to the question, what's better than an axe? Why, an axe that turns into 2 smaller axes and then chops off a head. And at number 1, it's the do you mind holding my spear? Followed by the thanks for lending a hand. Honestly, I'd happily make a video of just these attacks. Each one is a context-sensitive move based on the weapon used and the limb targeted. But there's a lot more going on in The Surge 2, which I'm going to quickly run through. Okay, one more for good luck. Oof. Before I get to the bigger changes, our trip to the world's nastiest public park serves as a good introduction to a spread of new features that Deck 13 are keen to explore. These security forces show a big step up from the exo-clad zombies of the first game. These soldiers will switch between melee and range combat and work in pairs, with one taking shots from afar while the other one gets all up in your guts and puts their fist through your spine. Other enemies come with cloaking shields. If you played the first game, you'll know Deck 13 are big fans of horrible bastards that jump out from behind tight corners. It's one of those learn from your mistakes kind of deals, and the cloaking devices mean they don't even need corners anymore. A bush could be a corner, air could be a corner. Truly a dark and troubling future. To give you a fighting chance, you now have much improved customization of your loyal drone. It supports different ammo types, from tiny shots that can be used to lure enemies from a larger group, think of Sekiro or Bloodborne pebbles, or heavy ammo that guns them down as you fight closer melee enemies. You can also attach new loot. I couldn't chop it off in my time with the game, but this laser spearing statue head can be attached to your flying friend, which is cool. Likewise, if you spot enemies with guns on their limbs, targeting those parts increases the chance of ammo drops for the drone's weapon. Then there's the more subtle tweak to AI that sees enemy behaviours adapt to the parts you're chopping off. The example given is overloading energy shields to see defensive soldiers switch to a berserker ferocity, but we also see it in these terrifying statues come to life. Chopping off its lance-carrying arm sees it do its best Gort impression, note to self, include a picture of Gort for the under-20s, and starts smacking you about the chops with a shield. It's certainly a bit more interesting than what came before. I was basically sold when I saw evil statues coming to life. It's like something out of Doctor Who if the Doctor wasn't such a killjoy about chopping baddies into meaty chunks. The combat itself is largely unchanged from the original. It's a system of dodges, blocks and ripostes which feel quite hefty and slow under the thumbs, although this might just be a side effect of having played so much Sekiro recently. The biggest change is the introduction of directional deflections, aiming your block up, down, left or right to counter a blow and give yourself a huge window for whittling down health or mashing that button to fill up your finisher bar. As we're here, we may as well enjoy another one of those things. In this video you'll notice directional brackets popping up when these attacks are incoming, which makes it easier to deflect, although there's still the issue of correctly timing the block. The brackets are an optional part of the interface that you choose to install. One of the more novel things about the Surge is how you modify your character with modules, ranging from extra health units to things that physically change how you see the world. If you played Nier Automata, it's not dissimilar to the plugin chips, in that you have limited space and have to decide which functions to install. What I love about this system is that it's a difficulty modifier that exists within the fiction. It isn't invisibly retuning a difficult game, but giving you an optional tool to take the edge off. A more confident player could choose not to engage with the module and rely on reading attack animations to properly dodge. Considering the recent spate of think pieces about Sekira's difficulty, this feels like a very elegant solution. And it's not like beginners will be wedded to the directional blocking analyzer to give it its proper name. They might feel the module energy is better spent on more health or harder attacks, based on how they adapt to the game. Deck 13 managing director Jan Close likens it to the original Elite docking computer. Manually matching the space station rotation to dock is a pain, so everyone was working towards buying the docking computer, but by the time you've saved up for it, you've probably mastered manual docking. Sadly, the similarities with Elite end there. It's not like the Surge 2 plays the Blue Danube as you activate directional blocking. I mean, think how good that would make the limb chopping. A man can dream. If you played the first game, you might also notice that this demo is looking slightly more verdant than the factories and offices you fought through there. This is a park in a future city, and you can tell it's the future because while it still has classical statues of the boars, it's sitting on a base full of flashing lights. I mean, what could that possibly be for? Anyway, the park arrives about 6 to 8 hours into the game, but Close says it could be more like 10 if you spend time exploring and crafting. As before, a big part of the game is about harvesting loot drops and gradually building your dream exo rig. What's more interesting, and impossible to show sadly, is the wider world the park fits into. The Surge 2 dumps us in Jericho City, and Deck 13 are working to make it a more open environment compared to the first, a world that encourages exploration and finding your own way. As an example, Close says you could access the park straight from the beginning. There's no quest gating, it's a matter of ability and difficulty. They say they picked the city environment as it's a place you expect to be interconnected, with main roads tempting you towards security posts where tough guards block your progress, forcing you to take to side alleys with the hope of finding a crack in the defences, or lower level enemies to chop up. We see this in motion in a hands-off demo as our hero is steered into the remains of a busted building to meet an NPC. As you are in a wider city, you can expect to find other survivors who can sell gear or give you side quests. Close is keen to emphasise the way the world rewards risk, that you are free to push it into much tougher areas before you're equipped to do so, and that the loot you get as a result will make other areas easier. This isn't an entirely new idea in a Dark Souls-esque game. A branching world where some routes are tougher than others is to be expected, but I am intrigued to see just how open it will be. Could you feasibly make it to the final boss from the outset if you had the technical chops to pull it off? I mean, it's something you can only really test in the final game. And that's the wider problem with previewing this kind of action game. The whole thing is built around an ability curve that you're gradually mastering from minute 1 to the final credits. Taking a tiny chunk out of context doesn't reflect the wider appeal of the genre. Close is the first one to admit that there's still balancing to be done. The energy cost of modules will have a big impact on character builds, for example, and the demo is maybe a bit overeager to hand over new modules and weapons. This is obviously accelerated for demo purposes. But I'm generally on board with the improvements, and I'm glad Deck 13 get to take a second swing at this. The studio has lived in the shadow of Dark Souls a bit, a curse arguably of their own making, as their earlier game Lords of Fallen had so much in common with the FromSoft series. The Surge itself was met with plenty of "it's sci-fi Dark Souls" analysis, but here the discussion seems to be shifting towards how it builds on its own ideas, how the world lets you find your own path through it, or how new weapons allow for grislier body chopping. I'm personally taken with the Gaia Lancer, if only because it doubles as an excellent stinging nettle strimmer. If the whole freedom fighter thing falls through, a life as a gardener beckons. Anyway, I hope this quick tour of how the Surge 2 improves on the original gives you an idea of what to expect. If you have any questions about what we played or saw in the hands-off demo, do ask them in the comments and I will clear up any mysteries. I'd love it if you'd hit the thumb icon under the video, and if you aren't already, why not subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun? What other channel gives you a limb-chopping montage to a Commodore 64 version of the Blue Danube? Well, thanks for watching, and hopefully see you soon. Bye for now.